Who is going to win the Sun Belt Conference tournament? Will it be one of the two favorites, or will someone make a surprise run? We'll talk about it next. Locked on Sun Belt.
You are Locked on Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked on Sun Belt, your teams every day. Previewing the Sun Belt Conference tournament with Matt Stewart. He's got the call on ESPN Plus up until the championship ball game, and then the guys from ESPN2 come in because, of course. All right, so of course, the first thing we discussed with Matt is the bracket and how that was revealed and the tiebreakers. And nobody's saying it's easy, all right? This is not something that was simple, but we do talk it over. We talk about Troy and Marshall, their sides of the brackets. And can anyone make a run? I still think Arkansas State can make a little bit of a run. We'll see how many games that would entail. Let's talk about it next. The Sun Belt Conference tournament tipping off in Pensacola today. We do it with Matt Stewart. He is on the call for ESPN Plus, and he is locked on Sun Belt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked on Sun Belt, your teams every day. We are previewing the Sun Belt Conference basketball tournament, which is starting today. We have our guy Matt Stewart on. He'll be calling all the games up until the championship game. Of course, you're like the opposite of the Sun Belt bracket, right? You do all the heavy lifting. And
right.
the other guys
I don't get any buys. I get a buy in the championship game,
right,
which is when you don't want to buy. But it's all good.
Those bathroom breaks are pretty quick.
Yes, they have to be.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room before we get to the teams.
Okay.
The bracket reveal, it didn't go up until I think 12:45 a.m. Saturday morning and 11:45 p.m. Central Time. I'm still not sure they got it right. There seemed to be some confusion. Everybody was confused on what it was going to be. Nobody had the bracket, although I think Matt Present, the App State radio broadcaster, he got it correct, but not for the reasons he thought.
Gotcha.
Just a missed opportunity, Mac, because you saw it. The entire college basketball world was focused on the Sun Belt, and they should have made a spectacle of it. Instead, I feel like they made a spectacle of themselves.
Yeah, I don't know that I would go as far as to say made the spectacle of themselves, but I mean, it's a very complicated tiebreaker.
Admittedly.
and I don't think there's any way around that when you have 6 teams tied for one spot. There's the teams that are going to come out like Marshall. Wow, they feel pretty good about it. They're the 2 seed, And then Arkansas State, talked to Ryan Pannone, their head coach. He was obviously frustrated about it. I mean, I'm not going to tell the Sun Belt how to do their business, but I think a simpler way would have been once you get. Obviously, you want to deal with the head-to-head.
Right.
If there's any way, and all 6 teams, the likelihood that all 6 teams have played the other 5 teams is probably pretty remote. I think simplest, and one of the tiebreakers was, and I don't know whether I don't think they ever got to that, was the net ranking. So, I mean, and the reason, and I'm stealing this from Ryan Pannone, the Arkansas State head coach, and I thought it made a lot of sense. He says, well, this bracket is put together to protect the best teams in the conference. Well,
Sure.
What better way to do that than to protect the teams that are ranked higher in the net ranking? Once you've eliminated the opportunity for head-to-head, which I no doubt in my mind, that's always the number one tiebreaker, head-to-head, that the games are played on the floor, and that's where, things should be decided. But I don't disagree with Ryan Pannone in that regard. Arkansas State in that, had it gone directly after you get past the head-to-head matchups and they were no longer applicable, if it had gone straight to net ranking after that, Arkansas State would have been the 2 seed. Instead of the 7 seed. So you can see why he supports that theory. And I think there's some validity to what he said there. I think it probably would have been a little bit more simplistic. You kind of get in the weeds with the tiebreaker. But hey, look, every conference that I know of uses this kind of thing where you go through the standings. Okay, what's your record against this team? What's your record against this team? Every conference in the world does it that way. So the Sun Belt's not alone in that regard. I know the SEC does it that way. You go down until you get to a place where everybody's played this one team. Okay, what's your record? And it might be the 10th best team in the conference. Now, how is that a true judgment of how good a team is? I don't know. It's a sticky and delicate situation. I think one of the stories we're kind of missing here in all this is that it exemplifies how incredibly even across the board this Sun Belt Conference is. And if you had a straight up tournament, just a regular old tournament, I think 1 through 12, maybe 1 through 13 might be able to win this tournament if it was just a straight up normal tournament like other conferences play. And this is the whole reason why they don't want that. They want a staggered tournament. They want a tournament where the top teams at the conference, at the top of the conference regular season standings, are protected and have the best shot to get to the NCAA tournament. Problem is, you had 6 teams, you had 7 teams in the top 2 spots of the regular season standings. Right.
So a few things about that. Does everybody play each other in the SEC?
No.
Oh, okay. So,
in the SEC, I do believe so.
So that's the thing. So everyone plays each other there, whereas
no.
That
can't. Yeah, I don't know.
Because,
I would have to. I can't.
Not everybody plays.
I can't be held to that because I don't know that for sure. But I mean, they still basically play a division schedule in the Sun Belt. Teams that are in the East in football are playing home and away against those teams, and you're playing one from the West, and you're taking one game off. So I mean, would there really be that big of a difference between a 19 and an 18 game conference? You start getting into the schedule a little bit, and this year they played a conference game before Christmas, which I'm not opposed to. I think it's great. I'd rather see a conference game before Christmas than beating up on some NAI opponent. So
right. We're talking with Matt Stewart. He's got the call of the Sun Belt Conference Tournament in Pensacola coming up later today. A couple more things of what you talked about. We all wanted to get down to a coin flip because that's the last tiebreaker. That would have really thrilled Ryan Pannone out. And I wonder if he would have called heads or tails, because I'm always a tails guy. All right.
Okay.
Also, no offense to Ryan Pannone, but don't commit a foul up by 3 to give South Alabama a 4-point play, and you would have been in second place.
Yeah, I mean, that's, look, exactly. You're right.
Tiebreaker all you want, but don't be breathing on a guy up by 3. That's how they lost.
Exactly. So, and every team in this conference can go back and look at a scenario like that in their season, a game they should have won and didn't, a game they lost and they should have won, so.
I think Arkansas State's got 2 of those against South Alabama, not 1, but 2. Okay, let's take a timeout. We'll come back and continue our discussion with Matt Stewart. We talk about the favorites, Troy and Marshall, the number 1 and 2 seeds. We'll do that right after I tell you about Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play. You decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with ESPN Plus's Matt Stewart. He is on the call for the Sunbelt Conference Tournament. We talk about the matchups, or the favorites in this case, Troy and Marshall. Troy bounced back from what was a great start to struggling, and Marshall kind of backed into the number 2 seed despite losing on Friday night. Let's continue our conversation with ESPN Plus's Matt Stewart. All right, let's talk about the favorites, okay? It's very odd. I think Troy, for the first, up until about February or the second week of February, Troy was by far the best team in the conference. All right. They end up being.
I did a podcast with Coach Scott Cross, and I joked with him when I talked to him on Saturday. I said I was a little reticent to call you back because I thought you might not want to talk to me. They were 8-1 when we did the podcast. They went 4-5 the rest of the way. So,
did you suggest that there may be an opening with my Syracuse Orange to Scott Cross? The Troy fans don't want to hear about that. So, although there may be another former Sun Belt coach that may be up for that job from USF. Anyway, so Troy was the best team, and then all of a sudden they weren't. They became incredibly inconsistent. They had a relatively easy schedule down the stretch. They won 3. South Alabama won 2. That's how that happens. Marshall lost at home. South Alabama lost at home. Has Coach Cross told you when, was it Theo Sang coming back? Because he's been missing for a couple of weeks. I'm sure that was an issue. But all these guys.
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell at this point because, I mean, they're not playing until Sunday.
Oh, that's right. Right.
I mean, it's not like they need him back tomorrow.
Right.
They don't need him back until Sunday when they play their next game.
And so that what do you think was the issues with Troy? Because Sang only was gone here for a couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, I can only say what Scott told me, and that's what he felt like a little complacency. Set with the team when they got up 8-1 in the conference schedule, and it looked like they were going to run away with it. He felt like the team got a little bit complacent. They got, but I mean, and you said the schedule got easier, but they did have to play Texas State, and they did have to play James Madison beat them too, and I think App beat them too. So
App destroyed them in Troy.
That's right. That's right. Yes. So, I mean,
talk about complacent. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I don't know how much complacency is in that. I mean, App's just darn good. And Texas State, having to play them out there, they only lost one, home game the entire season. That was the Southern Miss back in December. So, I mean, they were the toughest. I mean, just statistically, they were the toughest home court environment in the entire Sun Belt this year.
Well, the easier schedule came at the end. 2 games.
They had ULM, yes.
Louisiana and South
Alabama. And they'll tell you, man.
What's that?
And Scott Cross will be the first one to tell you, obviously so, because of what transpired. Every coach that I've talked to leading up to the tournament, when the subject, and it doesn't always come up, but if the subject organically came up about ULM, every one of these coaches will tell you this team, despite the fact they were 1-17 in the Sun Belt Conference, fought tooth and nail. They were a tough out. They were hard to beat. They never quit when you would think a team that's, buried in the standings, 4 overall wins and 1-17 in the conference, they might quit, and they're opening against Old Dominion tonight. And that's the team they beat, and Coach Phil Cunningham says, well, maybe, he was playing at the other side and said, maybe Old Dominion might have taken us a little bit for granted and overlooked us. He felt like some teams probably did that at times. Obviously, it would be a natural tendency to do when a team with that kind of record shows up on your floor.
Well, that was a 1-point ball game on Saturday, and Troy had to survive. Troy went on a big run in that. They needed a minor miracle to beat them the first time a couple weeks ago, and it may be the best game in the Sun Belt was that double overtime victory that South Alabama was down by like 14 with 3 minutes left to go. And at any point in time, ULM could have folded, and yet South Alabama was able to pull it out right at the end in double overtime. So that was
what I thought was amazing about Friday was, Troy was the first team in the books with a win. They got to the clubhouse, they had the dub. And I was like, okay, how many teams are going to join them? There's going to be at least 3 more teams that pull into a first place tie, and none of them did. All of them went 0 for 3.
Well, I saw that I did pick Texas State to beat App State, like you said, home game. And that was a great game.
It was a great game, 60-57 final. Yep.
Yeah, that was a great basketball game.
And of course, and not involved in this conversation, but the other, the Coastal and James Madison was a great game. Joshua Beadle hit a dagger with 9/10 of a second to end James Madison's, I think, 5 or 6 game winning streak. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, so it'll be interesting to see, Coastal. You and I were having this conversation. I thought the job that Justin Gray did this year, Scott Cross wins Coach of the Year, and it's hard to argue against that with what he's done with that program. And they won their first ever Sun Belt outright championship. They'd only shared it in the past. It's hard to argue against that, and I'm not arguing against it, but I thought Justin Gray, and maybe he did get a lot of consideration. I don't know. But I thought he had a fabulous season. They went from 3-15 a year ago to 11-7 this year in the conference.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. All right, on the other side of things, Marshall does, I guess, back in, as they say, to the second seed. They lost. That was a good game against Georgia Southern until it wasn't, when Georgia Southern just started hitting threes from all over the place. What is that matchup that, Marshall can't handle Georgia Southern? I think Georgia Southern is averaging 100 points in 2 ball games.
Yeah, Georgia Southern has had 2 really big high-scoring games against Marshall this year, both times going over 100 points. Talked to Corny Jackson after that game, and he was not, despondent's not the word, but I mean, he was upset about it. He says, "I'm glad we don't play until Sunday because it's going to take me a while to get over this." I mean, they had the confetti machines, they had everything teed up and ready to go. I mean, they were ready to celebrate a championship. The placards were champions and all that kind of stuff, and the confetti, they were ready to shoot that into the crowd, and then it didn't happen. So, I mean, they really thought they had a shot to win the outright or share the championship, get a part of that regular season title on Friday night on a nationally televised game on ESPNU, and they didn't get it done. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about that old Georgia Southern Marshall matchup other than obviously it's a good matchup for the Eagles. So, I mean, and it was a big win for Georgia Southern and Coach Charlie Henry because they avoid having to play on day one.
Talking with Matt Stewart, he's got the call of the Sun Belt tournament from Pensacola. All right, so usually we are both alike that the top 2 teams are the heavy favorites. All right, the one caveat is that they don't play a game, as you mentioned. Troy's not playing until Sunday, so that is going almost 9 days without playing a game.
Well, I think if there was anything to be learned from the first year of this format, and I don't know, we'll find out whether it was something to be learned from this first year of the format, if it holds true here in the second year of the format. But based on the first year of the format, it certainly appeared that being the 3 of the 4 seed was the better place to be. Because, you get a game, get a win under your belt, and now you're facing a team in the semifinals that hasn't played yet, that you're clearly, I mean, just talent standpoint, you're equal to. There's not much difference between the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds. They're virtually even teams. So it's certainly a team that you can beat. And I think we saw that last year. Now, was that just what happened last year? Or is that going to prove to be the case this year? But I do believe that there is some momentum there for the 3 and 4 seed if they win their games. Just as I think there's also going to be some momentum there for the 6 and 7 seeds this year when they go up against those. When they go up against the what would it be? The 5, 6, and 7s. Right. I guess the 7 would be a step out of it. So the 5 and the 6, when they face the 3 and the 4 in the quarterfinals, because they'll have a game under their belt, and it's going to be against a team. They're now playing a team that's been sitting around all week. They've been practicing but not playing. Different story. And and they've got some momentum. And the other team does not have momentum. They've been on that floor. The other team hasn't been on that floor for a game yet. And, and the teams are virtually even. I mean, as their records attest, they're all going to be 11 and 7 teams facing each other.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because you mentioned Arkansas State. South Alabama was also the big loser, right? Yes. They could have been both them and Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, they just absolutely got drilled by Southern.
They did get drilled. Yes, that was not a particularly defensively, they were okay because that's typically what the opponents get, but offensively, they were bad. Southern Miss did a good job defensively. But that's where it'll be interesting to see, because South Alabama has to play Arkansas State if Arkansas State moves on. And as we mentioned, Arkansas State should have beaten, we'll rephrase that. We'll do that. Probably should have beaten South Alabama twice. South Alabama, huge comeback in Jonesboro, and then that 4-point play at home to slide by in overtime. But that's where Arkansas State, all of a sudden, they play their game, all right? Then they get South Alabama, and then they're in game number 3, and then they get Coastal as the 3 seed. I think that's a possibility. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think ball games versus 1. That'd be tough.
Getting to the 4th game is tough, and certainly in Arkansas State's case, they got to win 5
to win the championship
to win the whole thing, and that's going to be extraordinarily difficult. But winning 3 in a row for these guys, I don't think for most teams is not that is not that big a deal. I mean, it's a big deal. I don't want to downplay it, but it's not the Mount Everest that some people want to make it out to be. Getting that fourth win in a row, it is. I think we saw that last year. Remember, it's a little bit of a trivia question. I sprung it on you before we started this podcast. Is what team won the most games in the Sun Belt tournament last year? It was Old Dominion. Coming from the back of the tournament, they won 3 in a row, and they got to until they ran into Troy in the quarterfinals, and they were simply gassed at that point, playing their 4th game in 4 days and playing a very good Troy team, and they got beat rather handily. It was not much of a game, and at the same time that Troy is is beating a gassed Old Dominion team, yet Arkansas State knocking off South Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Or was it?
I think so. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so the big change in the format is not that there's no more off day, because that was even worse, where someone played a game, had an off day, and playing somebody who hadn't played in a week. But a couple of teams, right? South Alabama ran a gauntlet and lost to the Cajuns in the championship game. I think Texas State made a run a couple of years ago.
They did. That format certainly did not benefit the higher seeded teams, because you played, but then you got a day off.
Right.
Even if you were like an 11 through 14 seed, you played and you got a day off. You won, and so it certainly negated any disadvantage you might have by having to play early in the tournament or having to play a lot of games. So they got rid of that format. So just no scientific poll on this whatsoever, but just off the top of my head, most every one of the coaches, regardless of where they landed in the seeding process, even whether it was good or bad for their team, seemed to like this format.
Okay. All right. Well, because
so we'll see what goes forward. What happens is, coaches get fired, coaches retire, coaches change, and then the vote changes as you get new coaches in there. But right now, I would be surprised if there was any kind of a change, because most of the coaches that I talked to like the fact that teams in the regular season who did well get rewarded and protected, except for the few who felt like they did well and did not get rewarded and protected.
So what would be a different format other than this? I mean, most conferences, you do have to win at least 3 ball games to be in.
Yeah. I mean, go to an SEC's type format where you got double bye, but they've done that. They've done that tournament before.
Right. But SEC doesn't invite everybody, right? Not everybody makes the SEC tournament, I thought.
Yeah, so it's gotten so big, and that's another story for another day, that these conferences have gotten so darn big that they're too cumbersome. They're just too cumbersome to look at the standings, whether it's football or basketball or whatever the case may be. And I'm not talking specifically about the Sun Belt, because there's conferences even bigger than the Sun Belt, but those conferences I don't like. But a long time ago, the SEC decided that divisional play was a bad thing for them, because teams, were getting left out of the NCAA tournament. Now they were getting left out of the NCAA tournament because they weren't very good. But they convinced themselves it was because of divisional play, and the conference was so equally yoked and spread out that teams were going, they were going 8-6 or 9-7 in divisional play, and that looked bad. And so, we got to get away from divisional play and just go to a big old mosh pit of a standings.
All right, let's wrap up our conversation with ESPN Plus's Matt Stewart. We'll do that after this. We talk about predictions as the way we think the tournament is going to go, and can anybody make a run. We'll do that after I tell you about Indeed and FanDuel. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. Since I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is your job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop, big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night from early tip-offs to late night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your liking. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up our conversation with Matt Stewart as we predict, more along the lines, I predict who is going to win the conference tournament and who may make a run and surprise some teams. He has the call on ESPN Plus through the semifinals. He is Matt Stewart, and he is Locked On Sunbelt. Talking to Matt Stewart, he's got the call of the Sunbelt Conference Tournament on ESPN Plus from today through the semifinals, and then the big boys come in, I guess, for the championship game. It is what it is. So I'm going to go chalk for the most part. I think I'd be surprised if anybody but Troy wins this ball game. We'll see if they are complacent, and we'll see if that format does not work for them. I do think Marshall's side of the bracket is much more difficult than the other side of the bracket. That could just be me. Like we mentioned, Texas State and App State have these really good home court advantages, but they're not at home. Although App State was pretty good on the road. I think they finished 8-8 on the road, and that's pretty good.
Which is great. That's great.
Yeah. At any rate.
Yeah, I think that, obviously I think Troy has shown that they can be the best team in this conference. I don't know that I'm positioned to say here that right now, as the tournament starts, that they're going to be the best team in this tournament. They can be. They're certainly talented enough. Scott Cross has built himself, not just a team, but he's built a program, and he's got great players, and they do what, they're designed to do. But I do think that you got teams, I think any of the teams 1 through 6, maybe not 1 through 6, because the 5 and 6 got to win. They got to win 4 games, right? So
right.
Probably not. But I would say 1 through 4. I would say teams 1 through 4, just simply based on the format of this tournament, have a shot to win it. But outside of that, maybe a 5-6 to win 4 in a row against this field. It happened as recently in a different format in 2021 when App State did it, didn't they? They did it in 2021. They won 4. The first year that this tournament was held, they had Almonacee who went nuts in the tournament, and they were the Cinderella story and won it. I think Texas State was the overall number 1 that year and got bounced. And so it can happen. Can it happen in this format? I don't know, because the thing about this format that's the real kicker is you play a game, you win that game, your next opponent's going to be a team that's totally rested while you're a team that's not totally rested. And it only keeps getting bigger and bigger with each passing round of the tournament that you stay in. So for like an Arkansas State, they win their opening game. Let's say they win the opening game. Now they play a South Alabama team they can beat. But it's a South Alabama team that's rested, and they're not quite – and Arkansas State's not quite rested. Let's do they win that game. Now they're going to be playing a 3 or 4 seed, Coastal, who's totally rested. And now you've got 2 games under your belt on this floor over the span of the last 48 hours. And now you got to beat a totally rested 11-7 Coastal Carolina team. And it just gets more and more difficult as you go through this ladder of the tournament.
Well, it'll be interesting to see because you keep on talking about what one team has to do, which is true, that South Alabama would have to win 4 ball games. Arkansas State would be 5. That's going to matter if if one of the top 2 seeds makes it all the way. If they're playing a lower seed, then all of a sudden it's going to be 1 more game advantage. It may not be 2 game more advantages.
To me, in all reality, there's really only 1 seed that's bigger than all those other. I mean, it's Troy. Troy was 12-6. We talk about Arkansas State being the 7th seed. We talk about South Alabama being the 6th seed. They're the same as the 2 seed.
Right.
Record-wise and accomplishments-wise in this, there's no difference other than they lost a tiebreaker of some sort to not be the 2 seed, and it puts them in a bad spot. And I can understand. I saw it all on social media too. Their fans were all agitated and upset about it, and I get it, but it is what it is.
All right, so let's talk about some of the players who could shine. You do have the Thomas Dowds of the world, the Victor Valdes of Troy. Marshall's got Wyatt Fricks. Right, I was shocked to see that Chaze Harris leads the nation in converting at the rim, and I'm not sure it's particularly close. Leave it to South Alabama to keep on getting those guards who can't shoot threes but keep on scoring.
Well, Chaze Harris, he's another one of those Richie Riley specials, one of those guys, chip on his shoulder kind of guy. Came from NAIA Life College, which is not far from where I live in Atlanta, and it's been an NAIA powerhouse for years now. And used to really get a lot more attention than it does now. NAIA in Atlanta is hard to get attention, but yeah, it came from there, and we've seen these guys from Richie Riley before. Not great 3-point shooters, but great downhill drivers, get to the rim and score that way. And he has done a better job. In fact, I was talking to Jay Ladner, Southern Miss, and he said we tried to take a little bit of a page from the Richie Riley blueprint. So now it's recognized by everybody. The Richie Riley blueprint is go find those players that are gems, diamonds in the rough, whatever you want to call them, who for whatever reason they weren't recruited big out of high school. Maybe it's because they can't shoot the 3, like you said, but they've excelled and at the Division II or the NAIA level, and now you're going to be able to give them an opportunity to come play D1 basketball and prove to the world what more powerful motivation is there in sports than us against the world, me against the world. And he does a really good job of finding those players who are really digging into that narrative. It's me against the world. It's us, the Jaguars. Man, we're just, we're the team that nobody wanted coming out of high school. And he does a really good job of fostering that. And, Richie says, I was one of those guys. So he lives and breathes it himself. So, and he's been successful with it.
Well, then you have like a Mark Drone from Texas State. App State's
got, and Drone was hurt last year. Drone was with Texas State last year, was hurt, only played 10 games. And so back fully healthy this year, you've seen what kind of player you can be.
App State's got the guards, Jennings and Dodd, really good. And, Arkansas State's got the shooters. And, we'll see, was it Josh Beadle from Coastal Carolina? We could find a lot of great stories this week from Pensacola.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be fun.
All right, Matt Stewart, he's got the call of the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. Was it Tuesday through Sunday?
Sunday.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and it's easy. It's easy to remember my schedule. We have the last 2 games every day. We have a game starting at 6 Eastern, 5 Central, and then we have the game after that. So I shouldn't get lost.
All right, very good.
I shouldn't forget my schedule.
He's always there when we need him. We do have to wonder, a quick question on a side note, when is La Tech joining the Sun Belt? Baseball-wise, they're already playing basically a Sun Belt schedule. All right, they got swept by Southern.
You think I know that? I don't know.
State. They're playing South Alabama. We need to know. We need that football schedule, and it's that La Tech Conference USA thing.
Well,
that's holding it up.
and apparently, I saw some social media post about that. People talking about how the football schedule hasn't come out yet, and I guess that's because the La Tech question remains unanswered, remains up in the air. So we'll wait and see what happens.
I'm asking you the question. You don't have the answer.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to it.
I thought you may have the answer.
No, I don't. I don't
Matt
have
Stewart. Always appreciate the time. Have a great call. We'll all be watching. Really appreciate your time hopping on Locked On Sunbelt. All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for having me again.